world feeling unsafe, even in places that they know like the back of their hand.
Give me 2 seconds, guys.
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here. See it here, and see it here.
I hate commercials.
If you're watching this video, that means you're probably interested in true crime. And if you're interested in true crime, then I'd be willing to bet you'd be interested in this channel, True Crime Stories. So do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already. It's totally free and keeps you up to date with all of my future cases. Vanessa Teresa Marcoux was born on June 17, 1989. Vanessa was an only child. She did exceptionally well in school. She loved playing sports and was an avid adventure seeker. Vanessa loved spending time in nature and in the outdoors, and she was very active. Vanessa and her family even took vacations to several beaches, mountains, and resorts, and she loved connecting with nature. Vanessa also was a kind-hearted girl with a love, generally, for life. Her family and friends defined her as a person they could really rely on. Vanessa was also very responsible and loved helping and was fond of her family. On the outside, Vanessa had the perfect life. But that wouldn't last for too long. See, Vanessa's parents, while she was still young, decided to call it quits on their marriage. Things weren't working out, and their once loving marriage had run its course in their eyes. Now, this was a major change for Vanessa, and you would think that it would have had a massive impact on her emotional stability. But Vanessa, even after her parents divorced, was super close to them both. Yes, they weren't together, and Vanessa knew that their family dynamic had changed forever, but even so, she was still the bubbly, outgoing, and loving person that everyone knew her as. But let's be honest, grief comes in many colors. None of us really know what sort of darkness may have been lingering beneath the surface. Fast forward to graduating from high school. Vanessa attended Boston University and pursued a degree in communication there. Vanessa loved and excelled at her major, so much so that she graduated with honors in 2011 and got a job straight out of university. After graduating from college, Vanessa worked at WordStream, an online marketing software company. Not only this, she worked at Vistaprint to gain experience in the corporate industry and the communication business. That's because she had a bigger goal and wanted to get her hands on her dream job. See, Vanessa saw herself working for the tech giant Google, and to her surprise, she soon got the jobs she so desperately wanted in 2015. Vanessa moved to New York City to work as an account manager at Google. She was over the moon when she got the opportunity, although that did mean that she had to move away from her family to chase her dream, which was certainly a bit of a tragic decision for her. For Vanessa, that was a gutting feeling because as an only child, she loved her family and wanted to spend as much time with them as possible. But she also wanted to start her professional journey in her dream company. Despite being extremely busy with her job in New York, Vanessa always made bi-monthly visits to Princeton, Massachusetts to visit her mother and her aunt. Vanessa's mother, Rosanna, really looked forward to these meetings, and in August of 2016, she was beyond excited to see her daughter again. Princeton was a very tiny rural town tucked away in Worcester County. It had a population of just under 3,500 people, so it was a town where everyone knew everyone. It was also a relatively safe town, so much so that the last major recorded criminal activity occurred almost 30 years ago. So it's safe to say that Princeton was a town that was secure for anyone. But that would soon change in the most horrific way when this quaint town became a haunting and terrifying place, and the whole community was shocked to their core. On August 7th, 2016, while staying over at her mother's house, Vanessa went out for a run. It was an ordinary Sunday, and later that day, Vanessa had to catch a bus during the day to get her workout in. And August 7th was no exception. Vanessa's mother's home was on Brook Station Road, close to a walking trail. 27-year-old Vanessa left her mother's house in the early afternoon for her daily jog. Now, this wasn't something out of the ordinary for Vanessa. She was always going to jog on this trail whenever she came to visit her mother. But the afternoon turned to evening, and there was still no sign of Vanessa's return. She wasn't picking up her phone, and Rosanna got worried, since Vanessa still had to pack and leave to catch her bus for New York on time. This behavior was extremely out of the ordinary for Vanessa. She was a responsible woman who was never late and didn't have a habit of forgetting important things. So Vanessa's disappearance and silence started eating away at Rosanna. By the evening, Rosanna called the police, and Vanessa was officially a missing person. Right from the get-go, the police were active in the search for Vanessa. This is a small town we're talking about, and if Vanessa were somewhere injured and in dire need of help, the police would do everything to get to her on time. There were civilians, police officers, and even canine units trying to look for Vanessa. The police wanted to search the area where Vanessa went, aka the jogging trail, as it was heavily wooded and had dense vegetation a mile away from Vanessa's mother's home. A body was found in the woods. It was the lifeless body of a woman who was completely disrobed, had burn marks on her limbs, face, and stomach, and had unfortunately also been assaulted violently. Upon closer inspection, a discarded and partially burned running shoe was also found near the body. There were also injuries to her neck, which were later helpful in figuring out the cause of death, which was manual strangulation. The police couldn't believe their eyes, and after identifying the body, it was confirmed to be 27-year-old Vanessa Marcoux. Vanessa's family was immediately informed of her passing, and her mother, in utter disbelief, was left numb from the shock and fear of the situation. Her worst nightmares had quite literally come true. Vanessa was brutally attacked and killed so close to her mother's home and on a trail on which she was very familiar. Rosanna and John were trying to make sense of the situation on how someone could hurt their precious daughter, who was doing nothing but minding her own business in her own hometown. It goes without saying that police immediately knew that this was a case of homicide, and they immediately set out to find Vanessa's killer before it was too late. By looking at the crime scene and the way the perpetrator had tried to remove any traces of evidence by lighting Vanessa's remains on fire, the police knew that it wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately attacked Vanessa and tried to tamper with her body so that they wouldn't get caught. It was an animalistic scene, and the police knew that if they didn't catch the wrongdoer on time, then something grave like this would happen again to another woman. After sending Vanessa's body for an autopsy, a full-blown investigation soon commenced, and the police were looking for any leads or clues left, right, and center. There were traces of DNA found at the crime scene, as well as on Vanessa's body, and it was sent for testing and cross-matching with the criminal database. It was also concluded that the attack on Vanessa took place between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., so it was not long after Vanessa left her mother's house that she was fatally attacked. The place where Vanessa's body was found was secluded, a perfect place for someone with malicious intentions to carry out their dark crimes. On top of that, Vanessa's clothes, cell phone, and headphones were also missing, and it was believed that they were taken by the perpetrator in an effort to further cover their tracks. While searching the crime scene for more evidence, the police found evidence of gasoline, essentially proving that the fire had been deliberately set to cover the criminal's tracks. As Vanessa's body was being analyzed, forensic specialists also found DNA underneath Vanessa's fingernails. This revelation suggested that Vanessa put up a great fight to save herself, and she might have left injuries on her attacker. So police were looking for any suspects with injuries on their faces or arms, because Vanessa probably inflicted those during the final moments of her life. Also, the fact that Vanessa's body was dehumanized and left exposed gave the police a clue that the crime was indeed that of passion. The police were confident that Vanessa's attacker wasn't someone she knew. From the looks of it, it seemed as though the attack on Vanessa was random, which is just as scary. And this left the police in even more confusion as to why a person would do such a vile and evil thing. With all of this information, the police had no choice but to go and make it public, to get Vanessa's case known to everyone around them, in hopes to solve it and catch the perpetrator. On August 11, 2016, 4 days after the discovery of Vanessa's body, Worcester District Attorney Joseph Early Jr. conducted a press conference, and in it, he told the community of Princeton to steer clear of any danger and be vigilant of any suspicious activity, because the killer was still out there at large. Detective Earl also went on to describe the general profile of the killer, based on the evidence that they found at the scene of the crime. The perpetrator was defined to be 20 to 30 years old, a male with minor cuts, bruises, and injuries as a result of the scuffle with Vanessa. As time passed, the police turned to the public for more information about the day of August 7th. and an official tip hotline was also set up. The police received hundreds of tips every single day, which totaled almost 1,300 tips entirely. Several witnesses came forward with promising leads, but two of them stood out to the police the most, and they decided to look further into them. The first witness claimed to have seen Vanessa at the Mountainside Market on Hubbardston Road at about 1 p.m. on the day that she disappeared, talking on her cell phone and drinking some water. Another witness came forward with a very eerie detail. They claimed to see a dark-colored vehicle following Vanessa down the same road she was taking a jog on. The car appeared to be making calculated movements and wasn't even being discreet about following Vanessa. Why this witness didn't report this before the crime had occurred, well, we may never know. It's likely they probably thought Vanessa knew the person. After all, this was a shockingly safe town up until this point. This revelation of Vanessa being followed was an alarming discovery for the police, and they decided to look into the car and its appearance on the horrible day of August 7th. But during their investigation, there was one suspicious detail that detectives uncovered. Since the murder of Vanessa caught a lot of media attention, it was connected to another case that had occurred not too long before Vanessa's attack, but in New York. See, there was a 30-year-old there named Karina Vetrano, who was found in a park in Queens, New York City, where she'd gone for a walk alone. There were way too many similarities between Karina and Vanessa's cases and how their bodies were found for police to write this off as a coincidence. Karina was also disrobed, dehumanized, and strangled. This left the police even more confused because Vanessa also lived and worked full-time in New York City. So did the attacker, who was responsible for Karina's death, follow Vanessa all the way to Princeton to carry out another heinous crime? The police had too many questions, and time was running out. While trying to find the link that could relate Karina and Vanessa's cases together, the FBI also got involved in Vanessa's case and came forth with their own attacker profile and other information. According to the FBI, the person responsible for Vanessa's death was someone who knew the Princeton area well, or at least frequented there, because he knew the most secluded areas of Princeton, and he was aware of the neighboring stores as well. The police also received information on Vanessa's phone records, and it was found that it had been turned off at about 2:11 p.m., the same time when it was speculated that the attack on Vanessa took place, helping police to narrow down a very specific timeline. But 3 months after the fact, some incriminating information came forward, and it had to do with the dark-colored car, which was apparently following Vanessa. See, another witness came forward and said that they saw a black Ford vehicle with its hood up, parked just around the curb from where Vanessa's body was found. There was also a man in his mid-20s to 30s talking on the phone, and he appeared to be of a medium build and Hispanic. Oddly enough, when the witness passed by the same area again sometime later, the car was still there, although the hood was down and there was no sign of the driver. The police highlighted this information, and a bolo was put out on this vehicle. Another 3 months passed by, and on February 23, 2017, the police came out to the public with even more information about Vanessa's attacker. So, remember the DNA retrieved from Vanessa's body? Well, a criminal profile was made based on the DNA, and it was found that the attacker was most likely in his mid-20s to 30s, and he was likely of a medium build and was Hispanic. He had short hair, owned a black SUV or vehicle, and probably was from Princeton. This profile matched the description of the man that the witness saw. The press conference proved to be helpful because 3 weeks later, in March of 2017, a police officer who was on his usual duty spotted a man identical to the description given by the police. Their daughter, who loved all things sports and athletics, the Marco family founded the Vanessa T. Marco Foundation in 2017. It started as a platform to help find Vanessa's killer, and now it's grown into a non-profit organization that conducts self-defense workshops and classes for women, and spreads awareness against all kinds of harassment that women face on a day-to-day basis. This case is nothing short of a terrifying nightmare for women everywhere. Angelo and Vanessa didn't even know each other. There was no animosity or ill will for there to be a clear motive for him to brutally attack her and take her life. This man literally just saw a good-looking young woman running by and decided, yeah, I want that. Angelo was an evil man who simply wanted to terrorize a woman, any woman. From the remarks of his coworkers, he seemed like a guy who saw women as nothing more than an item to be played with and then tossed aside. Nothing more. The lack of respect is just appalling. The fact that Vanessa's attack was so random makes everything all the more chilling, and it really goes to show that there are monsters hiding in plain sight. For decades, even hundreds of years, women have been constantly victims of harassment, catcalling, and so much worse. This is why many women tend to feel unsafe wherever they go, because cases like this can unfold at any moment in broad daylight without any level of warning. You truly never know when one day might be your last, and that's such a haunting thought if you just let that sink in for a moment. The Vanessa T. Marcoux Foundation has taken a huge step forward in the right direction of a formative vision, to make the world a safe place for women so that they don't have to be afraid to step out of their homes for something as simple as a workout or buying groceries. I get asked all the time why I tend to cover so many more female cases than male cases. And the honest reason is because I just feel like these cases need so much more light shed on them. Men get taken advantage of every single day as well. We all know that, that's true. But the number of occurrences is vastly less when compared to how often women are victimized. And I'm not just talking about the cases like Vanessa's, where these victims lose their lives. I'm not even talking about the cases where women come forward about the abuse they endure. I'm talking about the daily occurrences that women are forced to deal with. The creepy second glances, the off-color remarks about their looks, the unwanted touches, all of it. We need to do something about this, and the Vanessa T. Marcoux Foundation is making great strides at helping women better learn how to identify a potential threat, as well as deal with it accordingly. But there's still a long way to go, and I can only hope that the community and law enforcement agencies as a whole can do something about predators preying on vulnerable women, because the world does not need a repeat of what happened to Vanessa and so many other women. It's time to stop.
Yes, I agree. Give us a second.
Collaboration is smoother than ever with Dell.
There we go.
Most people don't even think twice before posting a photo or a memory on social media. It's the 21st century and social media has taken over the lives of everyone.
You have to
Although it's
think
a great
twice.
way to keep in touch with tons of people very
It's out
quickly,
there forever.
you never know what evils may be lurking behind the shadowy gray areas of social
Oh
media.
boy, and there are evils.
Celeste Mono, a thriving girl with a seemingly perfect life, had no idea that someone, a stranger, was obsessed with her to the point where she was being mercilessly stalked. Celeste never even imagined in her wildest dreams
Probably
that she would
knew
be
more
attacked
about
in
her
her
than she
own
knew
home.
about herself.
She was about to witness just how nightmarish
Listen,
and
these stalkers
obsession
are
can really is.
they're no joke.
Celeste Mono was born on November 22nd, 1996 in Italy, and had an older half-brother, Jaden, and a younger brother, Alessandro. When Celeste was still young, her family moved to Melbourne, Australia, where Celeste graduated high school and attended RMIT University in 2015, where she studied criminology and psychology. Celeste had dreams of becoming a psychologist and wanted to help people by understanding what went on in the complex human brain. After she graduated college, she worked at a call center called Serco in Mill Park, Melbourne, and Celeste was amazing at her job. So much so that she climbed up the ranks and soon found herself promoted to the position of team leader. She also met a guy, Chris Risdale, at her workplace, and the two began dating. Celeste was defined as the epitome of kindness. She was a beautiful girl with a bright future ahead of her. She loved to dance and was even a cheerleader in her high school. Chris, Celeste's boyfriend, adored her and her personality. He defined Celeste as a treasure, and that he was really lucky for her to have chosen him to be her significant other. Celeste was also super close with her family. She and her brothers got along amazingly, and Celeste was very close with her mother, Aggie. She lived with her mother after graduation in Murnau, where the rest of this case takes place. Aggie and Celeste had the perfect mother-daughter relationship, and Celeste almost always shared everything with Aggie. Celeste and Aggie also had a nighttime ritual in which Aggie would always tuck Celeste in before bed, and they would talk about their days before calling it a night. Their bond was just so heartwarming because, no matter her age, Celeste always turned to her mother for advice and comfort. Overall, Celeste was a young woman who had a lot to explore, look forward to, and experience. But things wouldn't be the same for long, and Celeste would meet her tragic end just days before her 24th birthday.
No.
And that too in her own home, a place that most people assume is safe, no matter what.
I'm doing a very simple 4-step skincare routine, all Tula. This is a cool brand. This is a simple gel.
Before we keep going with today's case, just a quick reminder that if you subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to see all my latest videos the moment they upload. It's totally free and really helps keep the channel growing, so I really appreciate it. But anyway, on November 14th,
means that they have
2020,
all
Celeste and
more
Chris
time.
went on a brunch date in a rooftop bar in Melbourne, where they took
Not
lots of
much of a
pictures.
life.
Since the COVID-19 lockdown restrictions were finally easing, Celeste and Chris could finally meet each other and have a little brunch and catch up. Celeste had also decided to finally make her relationship with Chris official on social media, with a very happy and heartwarming picture. Both Celeste and Chris were serious about each other, and it was about time that they made things official everywhere. Fast forward to November 15th, 2020, which was a Sunday. Celeste posted the photo of her and Chris on her Instagram, then spent the rest of the day watching a movie. Celeste was also in the midst of making plans for her upcoming 24th birthday with her mother. As nighttime rolled around, Celeste and Aggie went about their normal nightly ritual, and Aggie told Celeste that she loved her, to which Celeste responded, "I love you more, good night." Tragically, this was the last time Aggie would ever tell her daughter good night, because at around 4:10 a.m. on November 16th, 2020, Aggie woke up to the sound of glass shattering. She got up and ran straight to Celeste's room because the sound clearly came from her bedroom. When she stopped in front of Celeste's bedroom door, she saw the most horrifying scene a mother could ever witness. 23-year-old Celeste lay on her bed, motionless and covered in blood. Celeste's bedroom window was smashed and there was glass covering the floor. Aggie couldn't believe her eyes. Just hours before, Celeste was alive and talking to her, and now Aggie was holding Celeste close to her, begging for her to open her eyes and say something. A mother should never have to see her daughter like that, and it's a burden that no one should have to bear, let alone a parent. The emergency services were immediately called, and when they arrived, they were horrified to see how Celeste's room looked. It was a gruesome scene. A distraught Aggie begged the first responders to save her daughter's life, but sadly Celeste had already passed away. When Aggie was struck with the news that Celeste was truly gone, she finally understood the gravity of the horrendous situation, and in a mix of sheer hysteria and rage, she stated he killed her. This statement immediately called the police's attention, and they wanted to inquire more while Celeste's body was taken for an autopsy. It was later revealed that Celeste had been attacked 23 times with a knife, and it was a fierce attack, resulting in a lot of defensive wounds on her body, specifically her arms and forearms. The fact that such a crime could take place in such a tiny window of time, it's just appalling. This all unfolded within a few seconds that it took Aggie to leave her bedroom and make her way to Celeste's room, and their house wasn't that big, so it didn't take her long at all. Her chest, arms, and stomach were covered in wounds. According to police, the attack must have lasted for about 2 minutes. And now, they're the professionals, so by all means believe them over the opinion of someone like me. I'm just some guy on the internet. But the fact that this crime took even 2 minutes seems nonsensical to me. Like I said a moment ago, Aggie jumped into action the second she heard the glass break in Celeste's room. And it doesn't take 2 minutes to jump from one room to another. In my mind, I see no way this could have lasted more than a few seconds, and it just shows how rage-filled and frantic this perpetrator must have been. It's just so hard to wrap your head around the fact that Celeste was viciously attacked and lost her life in such a short period of time. That too in her own bedroom, and just a couple of doors down from her mother's room. As the police searched for more evidence from Celeste's bedroom, they also asked Aggie about her very bizarre accusation. This was when more information about who he was surfaced, and the police were left stunned. The most bizarre and infuriating part out of all of this was the fact that Celeste and Aggie had actually gone to the police several times to report this man, but investigators were of little help. Police got to know about a potential person who wanted Celeste, and his obsession that eventually led to him ending her life. And that person was someone Celeste worked with, a 35-year-old man named Louis Seiko.
You think you know somebody?
So who was Louis Seiko, and why would he attack Celeste so barbarically? Louis Seiko was born in 1984 in Iraq. His parents were Christian, and he was the oldest of 5 children. In 1992, Louis' family was granted a humanitarian visa, and the entire family migrated to Australia. Louis was defined as a sweet and caring young boy, but he was also a loner and spent most of his time in his room. When he got to college, that's when Louis' personality started to shift, and he became even more withdrawn. He'd never been in a relationship before, and was mostly seen on his own. After graduation, Louis had been unemployed for the most part, until April of 2018, when he got a job at Surfing, the same call center where Celeste worked. In fact, he was in the same team that Celeste led, but up until that point, Louis didn't really know about Celeste. But this changed very soon. Turns out, Louis would only hold his job for a short time, and in June of 2019, he received notice that he was fired based on performance issues. On his last day of work, Louis was escorted out of the office by none other than Celeste Ronald. This was the fateful day when Louis really took notice of Celeste, and he was immediately attracted to her. As they were saying their goodbyes, Celeste shook Louis' hand out of courtesy, wishing him luck for his future. But something really odd happened afterwards. Louis, while still holding her hand, pulled Celeste close and kissed her cheek before walking the other way. This action left Celeste embarrassed and probably pretty uncomfortable. She was caught quite off guard, understandably. Afterwards, when she came home, she even filled her mom, Aggie, in about this weird detail. Aggie, thinking nothing of it, pacified Celeste by saying that Louis probably had an innocent crush on her.
Alright,
But in my book, making a physical advance towards someone like that, that's not innocent. A few nice compliments, that's innocent. But Celeste, chalking this incident up to Louis just being a little weird, decided to let it go. But Louay was nowhere near done with Celeste.
Won't be long.
In fact, this encounter led him to develop a strong, one-sided infatuation with Celeste, and he knew that he wanted to have something more than a professional relationship with her. About a week later, Celeste received a message on Instagram, and it was from Louay. But the contents of the message left Celeste feeling uneasy. They started with somewhat of an innocent tone, with Louay stating that he loved Celeste and that he couldn't eat, sleep, or function at his new job without her. How he thought about her every single day, and even asked if Celeste felt the same way about him. Celeste initially tried to politely deal with the messages by herself, saying that she appreciated Louay's kind words, but she only had professional thoughts about him and wasn't romantically interested in him. She also proceeded to wish him well in his future. Celeste gently rejected Louay and blocked him on Instagram. But Louay clearly didn't get the message. Louay's obsession with Celeste reached new heights, and her rejection only added fuel to the fire. Louay made dozens of fake Instagram just to reach out to Celeste and harassed her, all in the name of his, quote, love for her.
So
The
sad.
messages intensified in creepiness, and they even turned sexual at one point. One of Louay's very eerie messages stated, "Celeste, if you had my body for a day, what would you do to me?" Now, this is just ridiculous and highly inappropriate. Celeste was left with no choice but to sternly answer Louay, and she said, quote, "Stop contacting me. This is making me very uncomfortable. Please respect my wishes."
Ew, maybe she didn't want nothing to do
every
with
single
it.
fake account. Louay didn't stop, and his messages and incessant harassment made Celeste very upset and understandably scared. This was noticeable to even people around Celeste, including her mother, Aggie, and Celeste's boyfriend, Chris. They just felt so powerless in the situation. Celeste was uncomfortable and losing sleep over it. She initially thought that Louay would get bored and eventually leave her alone. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. His obsession took a rageful turn, and in one of his frequent messages from yet another fake account, he said, quote, "My impression of you has changed. You're no different to the majority of women. I will devote every ounce of energy I have in climbing
like
up
a
and proving to
sergeant
the world that I am
having to
someone.
arrest his own child.
That's my promise to you, my final contact with you." After 6 months of seeing her daughter enduring this nonsense, Aggie finally convinced Celeste to file a report against Louay. When the woman went to the police station and told officers what was happening, instead of helping a distressed woman who was very clearly scared, they told Celeste that Louay hadn't committed a crime, and it was best that they just ignore him. When Celeste said that she'd been ignoring him for the last 6 months, the police officer advised her to get off social media, as this was the norm if someone put their life out there for everyone to see. Unfortunately, stalking claims are often taken lightly by the police, and there really aren't any solid laws where constant harassment from a stranger could be penalized. Now, there are obviously some laws in place about this sort of thing, but they're so vague and poorly understood that in the vast majority of cases, police don't bother with harassment cases like this until a crime has actually been committed. But the problem with that is that, more often than not, by the time a crime has been carried out, it's too late. Now, I don't know about you, but in the vast majority of cases, this means that a police presence is more or less useless. Just think about what happened with Trump at his rally in mid-2024. There were not only police present, but also Secret Service stationed every few feet. And we all know how that played out. It doesn't matter if police are present. They can't legally do a whole heck of a lot until a crime has actually been carried out. And love him or hate him, for Trump, that almost meant it was too late for him as well. But anyway, the trip to the police station was futile for Celeste and Aggie, as the officers didn't even make a report or write down Louay's name for future reference. Unfortunately, Celeste had to deal with Louay's vulgar and very derogatory messages for another 6 months. But things only escalated. Celeste would find Louay's car parked outside her workplace. She received almost 140 messages from Louay from multiple fake accounts. And horrifically, Louay also found out the suburb where Celeste lived by following her home from work one day. And that's a nightmare for anyone who's getting stalked. Celeste, at one point, even confided in a coworker and admitted that Louay's messages were scaring her, and that she was sure that Celeste was legitimately scared for her life at this point, and was decided that enough is enough. Some serious action needed to be taken against Louay. Celeste and Aggie went to the police station again after another 6 months, and finally they met a cooperative police officer who advised the women to file a personal safety intervention against Louay, which they did. Obviously denied. For a month, everything seemed normal for Celeste, but it was short-lived. On August 15, 2020, just 3 months before the horrific attack on Celeste, Louay sent a 3-page letter to Celeste, pleading that she take back the intervention order. He assured her that he would move on from her after she withdrew the order and the charges. He even ended his letter with a smiley face, which is just so creepy. Now, Louay's action of sending the letter to Celeste was, in fact, a breach of the intervention order itself. And when Celeste let the police know about this, they finally had a reason to act, because after all this back and forth, Louay had finally committed a crime. Louay was arrested at the end of August 2020 for breaching the safety intervention order. And you would think that everything would be normal again, and Celeste would be safe from this man's harassment. But that wouldn't happen. Oddly, within a day, Louay was released, and this time, he was angry with Celeste. He couldn't believe that Celeste would go this far and have him arrested for contacting him. Louay truly believed that he was entitled to Celeste, and that she would be lucky to have him. After his release,
tell you-
LeWay's torment
I'll
of
tell you how
Celeste
long we
once
got,
again
'cause
continued
this
with
is
a
it.
vengeance.
I know you
And
want
just
to
after his
get
release,
back.
he sent a
It's
livid
not your
and seemingly
fault.
final message to Celeste, which stated, "I know you rejected me. I get it. I'm like dirt to you. I get it. I know you hate me. I get it." Around the same time, he bought a hammer and a knife from the local supermarket. And for the next 3 months, LeWay went radio silent. Celeste didn't receive any messages from him. But knowing what we know now, he was lurking in the shadows, waiting, biding his time to find the perfect opportunity. Well, he did. And that was the photo that Celeste posted with Chris of their date on the 14th of November. Celeste thought that LeWay had finally let his obsession with her go, and she was feeling joyful and free after what felt like an eternity. This was why she went on a date with Chris, and even made her relationship with him public. But little did she know that this very photo would trigger LeWay, who was still secretly watching her after all this time, waiting to commit the unthinkable.
Creepy.
No matter who you are, there are times it can be tough to be yourself when you have severe asthma.
Leading up to the terrible day of November 16th, LeWay had apparently figured out which home was Celeste's by peering in the driveway and finding her car parked there, and even had her home floor plan mapped out to find where Celeste's bedroom was. Now, how he got hold of this, we don't really know. But LeWay had studied every single photo of Celeste, looking for details of her bedroom so that he knew exactly what her room looked like, which is just so terrifying. He was ready to launch a violent attack on Celeste because, in his mind, if he couldn't have her, no one would. On the 16th of November, at around 4:10 a.m., LeWay climbed the side fence of the Mono home and smashed Celeste's bedroom window with a hammer. This was the sound that Aggie woke up to. LeWay then proceeded to enter Celeste's bedroom and attacked her at least 23 times in less than 2 minutes, according to police. Then he left through the same window and fence with traces of blood found on it, leaving Celeste to be discovered by her mother. A neighbor's CCTV camera also caught LeWay zipping out of the street around the same time that the paramedics arrived. And after hearing from Aggie about the year-long cyber torment that Celeste went through, the police knew they had to arrest LeWay immediately. But they didn't have to, because after attacking Celeste, LeWay made a beeline for the police station, showed up with an injured hand, and confessed to the shot. He stated, "She's dead. She's dead. Go have a look. You know what happened. It's your fault."
No
In
coffee.
truer words, they
Go
never have
outside
been
if
spoken.
you're gonna cough, please.
In my eyes, this certainly is the fault of the local police. LeWay even tried to coerce the police officer to fire at him so that he could evade the law and essentially pass away with Celeste. But the police cornered him and he was arrested. As soon as LeWay was in custody, he was charged. And while searching his phone, the police found out that he was monitoring Celeste closely on Instagram, along with hundreds of screenshots of Celeste and Chris. Not only this, when officers searched LeWay's laptop, they found Google searches pertaining to Chris, her boyfriend, the bar where Celeste and Chris had their date, and investigators even found Celeste's home floor plans, but again, no idea how he got a hold of these. After being arrested, LeWay was awaiting trial, which took almost 3 years to reach completion. This delay was due to the COVID-19 restrictions, but a major part of it was because of LeWay. He tried to stretch the trial as much as he could, and he even tried to use the mental health stance as a way to evade the law. He did eventually plead guilty, but he tried everything he could to get away with his crime, pulling out all the stops to either prove himself as insane or completely innocent, even though he had already confessed at this point. LeWay tried to convince the jury he was mentally unstable and he was suffering from an episode of psychosis at the time that he attacked Celeste. On top of it all, he would fire his lawyers right before the trial, pushing the process back even more. He even represented himself at times, and he also tried to delay the court proceedings by maintaining that he only attacked Celeste twice, not 23 times as the coroner stated in the autopsy. LeWay was adamant to prove himself to be mentally unfit so that he wouldn't get such a harsh sentence, as a result of which a lot of psychiatric evaluations were done on LeWay. And one doctor in particular, Dr. Darji, said that LeWay suffered from hallucinations and was forced by an imaginary entity called Isha to act like a criminal. But it was also Dr. Darji who issued a warning in court and stated that LeWay was likely to reoffend if he ever got out, and that if he gathered sympathy from female prison guards, then things could take a turn for the worse. Ultimately, it was found that LeWay was just an egotistical, self-absorbed individual who couldn't bear the thought of being rejected by Celeste.
Yeah,
he was actually faking symptoms of mental health issues.
Yeah, he
He
sounds
a secret
selfish.
level of sick to come up with such an elaborate plan to try to get a lesser sentence for taking the life of an innocent and amazing young woman.
Sorry,
It's
girl.
just unbelievable. Celeste's family, especially her mother Agnes and her brothers, wanted LeWay to be sent to prison forever. And the prosecution even stated that the crime was premeditated, given that he bought the weapon 3 months prior. The nature of the crime was angry and violent. LeWay had every intention to end Celeste's life that night because he saw how happy she was with Chris, and that the couple's photos almost
Jealousy.
LeWay, which was why he
Jealousy,
lashed out
jealousy,
against Celeste, ultimately leading to her tragic demise.
Spanish
After 3 long years,
Cero, cero,
in 2024,
Jealousy
LeWay,
kills.
who was now 39 years old, was sentenced to 36 years in prison with
Watch
the
out,
possibility
watch
of
out.
parole after 30 years. Justice Dixon
Could be a
wanted to
jealous
expose
friend,
one
jealous
innocent
friend,
couldn't be
could be
warranted in this case
anybody.
because LeRae had a rare and extreme personality disorder, and this affected his mental state at the time of the crime. Justice Dixon also went on to emphasize the trauma Celeste's family went through because of LeRae.
Never leave your
He was
girl.
so
With
to see a
your
man
man.
who, mind you, wasn't even remorseful for savagely attacking Celeste, get sentenced to what's essentially nothing for the damage he inflicted on
Serious? What you got
the rest of his
going on?
but he only had to pay with a portion of his own.
Bird mentality. Stay away from birds.
Here at William & Mary, I don't have to make any sacrifices in my education. We are a liberal arts institute.
Celeste's family was very obviously devastated with the sentence, as you can expect. Aggie,
Yeah,
who
so
came forward with
if
her
every
thoughts
other
after the
word is
sentencing, said that the
bitch,
investigators and courts
that's
showed
bird.
away mercy, but they showed her
Right.
daughter none when she contacted the police twice for
Jet.
help. At Celeste's funeral, more than 100 people
Sorry,
gathered to
sorry,
get her
I'm
family.
here.
Aggie was completely
It's time to
crestfallen by her
run.
daughter's passing, lamenting the fact that she had never been a chance to see Celeste as a bride or watch her become a mother. According to
So
Aggie,
she's
the
gonna
lack of
take
interest in the police's
backstab
part
you.
is what led Celeste to her
Right,
death. Celeste's brothers, Jaden and Alessandro, were struck with grief as they had to say goodbye to a gentle and caring soul.
So sorry for
Celeste's smile is a memory that's imprinted in their minds forever. Aggie, after LeRae's sentencing, has been trying hard to petition for the tightening of stalking laws, and she also called for the electronic monitoring of stalking culprits. Aggie firmly believes that if LeRae had been monitored and tracked after being served with the intervention order, something could have been done to prevent what happened to Celeste. Aggie is adamant about changing the laws
Let's
to
stalk
stop
them.
because that's what she promised Celeste
Drag
she
it,
was
drag it,
she's
drag it.
suffering at the hands of LeRae's harassment.
What
She
you
would bring
doing
her justice. Celeste's
for?
family was going through every single day. She was taking
got
on such a
time,
young
you
age.
live
She
your
had so
life.
much to look forward to, but her dreams would never come true. Even though Celeste's family is trying to change the narrative on stalking laws while moving on from this tragic and sudden loss, there will always be a vacant hole in their homes, their hearts, and their minds. Almost half of stalking victims don't even report incidents, thinking that nothing can be done about them and that they won't be taken seriously. And this hasn't changed.
It won't
Stalking
be
is a
taken seriously,
serious crime,
but can
and it
be
a
done.
detrimental turn if law enforcement agencies don't work to prevent things from escalating before they reach a point of no return. The world needs to be a safe place for everyone, where no one can harass or torment anyone. But this goal seems further and further away with each passing day. Celeste's case was truly a depiction of a woman who tried to do everything to get her stalker to stop. And because of the indifference of police and taking stalking lightly, it led to devastating consequences.
Because you can't
The only culture who actually action the victim of stalking only if someone take away
How many
the violence they've been doing.
times told you take a walk?
But the truth of the matter is, I just don't know if that day will ever come. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. If you enjoyed this video, check out this other interesting case I covered, and don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free and keeps you up to date with all of my future videos. You can also click that join button below to help support the channel and see new videos long before everyone else does. But my name
Alright, guys, gals, time for me to call it tonight. I don't know if I told you earlier, maybe I didn't clarify, but I was stoned Bobby. You can't see it. Anyways, not important. God willing, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.